Hey man, I'm back. Sorry, that's the closest I can get to a Caribbean accent. You know, the little that I've heard of Viv Richards and the rest of the gang. Uh, I'm no actor, so the only thing that I can say is I've been waiting for you for a long time. Yes. Sorry, no, that's not my statement. That's where we stopped the last lesson that we had on B. Wordsworth, when the little boy, after about a week later coming back from school, had met him at the corner of Miguel Street. And the first thing he said, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Very simple sentence, a very innocuous it appears to be. But a kind of relationship is now building. Remember, the focus now is the relationship or the bond that has been established when B. Wordsworth came into the yard to look at the bees growing on the gru palm, and the relationship that was established with the little boy, that he was a poet and he thought he was the greatest. The little boy had doubts about that because he had never sold any of his poems. Uh, and then they meet a week later, remember? Not under the same circumstances, not he's not come home, but he's at the crossroads of Miguel Street, yes? And the first question that is asked is, have you sold any poetry? So you know that in the little boy's mind, the fact that he wants his poet friend to be successful. But probably because remember the impact. He said that you'll be a good poet. You are a good poet. For the first time, it has had this impact, a very positive impact on the child. So his concern is also there, and he says that, "Do you have you sold any poetry yet?" So he shakes his head. But the next few, I'm going to go a bit faster with this section because what we need to know here is a few details. He says that he's coming to his own home now. We know about Miguel Street, a little boy's home. Now we come to know about B. Wordsworth's home. So the detailing here is very important. We are looking at the detailing here of B. Wordsworth's home, as well as the bond and the friendship that is growing between these two. In my yard, I have the best mango tree in Port of Spain, the first reference to the Trinidad and Tobago. I waited here for you to tell you this and to invite you to come and eat some of my oranges. So, sorry, some of my mangoes, not oranges. Of this concern for vitamin C, sorry, mangoes. He lived in Alberto Street. Okay, I'm taking you back to the map that I showed you, remember? Alberto Street still exists. So that's where you can put a geographical a street in your consciousness, and that's there. A one roomed hut. Detailing in this paragraph, very important, page 119, very important. A one room hut, the center of this entire lot. The yard is all green. There's a big mango tree, one mango tree, a coconut tree, and there was a coconut tree and there was a plum tree. So you have the three of them. The place looked wild, as though it wasn't in the city at all. You couldn't see all the big concrete houses in the street. So it was unkempt. There was nobody to look after it. It's very important, this sense of unkempt, because here is a house belonging to somebody who perhaps has no interest in keeping the house the way it should be kept. Important point. Then the mangoes were indeed very sweet and juicy, and you know, the little boy ate about six, and he was really enjoying this because there were stains on his shirt and the juice oozing out. Yes, rivulets down his elbow and arm. My mother said when I got home, "Where you was? You think you is a man now and you could go all over the place? Go cut a whip for me." So remember I showed you the gru palms and the spiky thing. So perhaps bring out one of those huge spikes and I'll whip you with that. He really got a good whipping that day because he had stained his shirt, and his mother was absolutely furious with him. I ran out of the house swearing I would never come back. Very important, you know, the pain of getting beaten, and now that he has a place, perhaps he has a friend that he can go to. I went to B. Wordsworth's house. Very important. I went to B. Wordsworth's house. Somebody whom you can trust. I was so angry, my nose was bleeding. Stop crying, we'll go for a walk. What is the solution? We'll go for a walk. Yes, we'll think about other things. We'll not think about the beating. We'll not think about the bleeding nose. We'll not think about doctors and nurses. We'll go for a walk. This is the entire section now where the actual bonding takes place. Very important part of your understanding. Now the route. Remember when I showed you the map, the route. We walked down St. Clair Avenue. Remember. The savannah. This right is the entire park center, the race course which was at the side. And then they reach the savannah, which is more or less the center point. And let us lie, the last line on page 119, let us lie on the grass and look up at the sky. I want you to think how far those stars are from us. What does this line imply? What is B. Wordsworth sort of goading the boy to go into doing? What? Very simple. He's asking him to dream. Start dreaming. Start imagining. I'll take you to another world. We'll just lie down and we'll look up into the sky and we'll see how far the stars are from us. I turn the page. Yes. Remember bonding, friendship. I did as he told me and I saw what he meant. I felt like nothing, and at the same time, I'd never felt so big and great in all my life. So big and great. I forgot all my anger, all my tears, all my blues. The first paragraph on page 120. I felt big and great, opening out. Immense possibilities lying in front of me. The sky is the limit. There is nothing beyond a nihil ultra, nothing beyond. The sky is the limit. For the first time, I realized that I was as great as the sky up there, as the stars shining so bright. Yes. I moved away from this entire constricted existence. He began telling me the names of the stars. So it's sort of it's a kind of a lesson in astronomy. Yes, I particularly remember the constellation of Orion, the hunter. Yes. Again, like Orion the hunter, you have this entire story of Diana, who is a goddess of hunting and sort of who pursued Orion and loved him, but accidentally she killed him. So this entire story behind it, Orion the hunter. Very important line here is, I don't really know why I can spot Orion even today, but I've forgotten the rest. So probably there was something about Orion the hunter, the story that stayed behind with him. Somebody who'd accidentally died, somebody who is lost and gone forever. That story remained with the little boy. Point to note. Yes. Of course, remember they were lying in the savannah on the grass, and it's evening time. They're not supposed to be there. So there was this policeman. What are you doing here? Listen to B. Wordsworth's reply. I've been asking myself the same question for 40 years. A very philosophical answer. Yes. What I've been asking this question. What is the use of my life? What is the purpose of living? Why am I here? Why am I alive? Why have I come to this earth? What is the use? This state of utter desolation and helplessness is something, God forbid, none of us should ever be asking this question. This is, and what comes next is again very important. We became friends. You can quote this line, please, when you're writing the answer. We became friends, B. Wordsworth and I. Yes. And of course, he says that you must never tell anybody about me and about the mango tree, coconut tree, palm tree. You must keep that a secret. If you tell anybody, I will know because I am a poet. Yes. Don't tell anybody. Little boys believing in what, having faith, having trust, believing in what his friend, the only friend he has probably, is telling him. Don't talk to anyone about this. Don't talk to anyone about our friendship. Because I am a poet, and a poet is also a prophet. Again, I'm taking you back to the music makers, a poet prophet, yes, who knows everything. I'll know if you've told anybody about me, yes. And it was a promise that the little boy kept. He said, I gave him my word and I kept it. And I kept it. That faith. For why did he keep it? Because of the bond of friendship. The little things about what the boy says he likes. He liked his little room. It had no more furniture than a George's front room. Probably he's referring to a friend of his. Very simple, clean. Yes, it was neat, clean, but it looked lonely. The sense of loneliness is a intrinsic part of B. Wordsworth's life. Yes, and this loneliness is going to be taken a step further when he's going to narrate a story. Yes, when he's going to narrate a story. I will tell you the story. Yes, biographical, definitely, and definitely tragic. Once upon a time, a boy and girl met each other and they fell in love. They loved each other so much they got married. They were both poets. He loved words, she loved grass and flowers and trees. Nature and poetry and words coming together. They are both poets. They lived happily in a single room. Then one day, the girl poet said to the boy poet, we are going to have another poet in the family. So you see the way the story is structured, it is meant to be narrated to a little boy. Yes. No, no, a lot of verbosity in it. Very simple words. But this poet was never born because the girl died. And the young poet died with her, inside her. And the girl's husband was very sad, the other poet. And he said he would never touch a thing in the girl's garden. And that's why the garden is unkempt. That's why the garden looks wild. That's why it is a home of somebody who has lost interest in everything that is tangible around him. So the garden remained and grew high and wild. So that is the answer to the boy's question. Why you does keep all this bush in your garden? Why haven't you cut the grass? Why? Because I will never touch the garden, which was the girl poet's garden. Okay. It was the the little boy says, I looked at him and it was a lovely story. Was it really a very heartwarming story? It was a heart-rending story. It was something that would evoke a lot of pain. Yes. But little phrase here, I understood his story. Did he really understand the story, or did he understand B. Wordsworth's loneliness? Probably there is this bond because little boy understood this young poet's loneliness. Yes. We went for long walks. Then there is this, the friendship is set. They spend time together. They go to the botanical gardens, the rock gardens, the Chancellor Hill, which I showed you next to the savannah. It's actually the Lady Chancellor Hill. It's 2 miles long, and that's the highest point of port of Spain, and they used to walk there, go around. All these little things about walking, going, discovering new places were all a part of the entire friendship that was becoming stronger between these two. Absolutely, uh, you can say two opposite poles, a little boy and this not so young man. He did everything as though he were doing it for the first time in his life. He did everything as though he were doing some church rite. So there was something very unique about the way B. Wordsworth would do his work. Every little thing that he would do would be something as if he's doing something precious, something worthwhile. Yes, even if it was sort of Howard having some ice cream, and they would think about, okay, now which shop should we patronize now? Yes, so where should we get the ice cream from? As if that was a very important decision that one had to make. Not to just go outside and just call any ice cream man and buy an ice cream. No, let's decide which. So everything he used to put a lot of thought. I'll go and negotiate the purchase from that shop. I'll see. So everything became a kind of an adventure. For the little boy, the world, for his little world became an exciting place because there was a sense of adventure. And that's the line there, middle of page 121. The world became a most exciting place. And who was responsible for it? B. Wordsworth. Yes. Then, remember I said I'm telling you a story. First showing the house, then telling you a story. The third thing, I'm going to tell you a great secret. A secret? Yeah. Between friends. Now they're best of friends. He said yes. I looked at him and he looked at me. This is just between you and me. Yes. Remember? Why does he repeat it? Don't talk about this to anybody else. You should not. I'm a poet, I'll know, so don't. And what is it that he tells him? I'm writing a poem. Now, what do you think the boy's response will be? Oh, come on, I know you are a poet. I know you're writing a poem. You believe yourself to be the greatest. So what's new about it? No, he says, this is the greatest poem in the world. So look at the boy's response. He whistled, woo, greatest poem? All right. So he says, so tell me more about it if it's the greatest poem. You know that exaggeration that you see in next page? I've been working on it for more than 5 years now. For 5 years, he's been trying to write his greatest poem. And I'll finish it in another 22 years from now. What is the thought behind it? This entire hyperbolic statement that he has made. The only thing is like, he's wanting to write the greatest poetry. But something within him must have dried out completely, that he knows that is lost forever, perhaps. Yes. But what does the boy say? That means you write a lot. If you're thinking of writing a poem that started 5 years ago and you're going to write it for the next 22 years, you're going to write a lot. He says, no, I write only one line a month. Yes, one line a month. Okay, then say, what was your line of last month? He says, very important line. Please note it, all of you. The past is deep. The past is deep. We will come back to the discussion on the past is deep when we are working on the question. But I want you all to write out this line and think of its significance. The past is deep. Is it something which we don't know? Is it something we have never heard about the past being deep? What does deep signify? Go back to thinking about his life. Go back to thinking about his expectations. Go back to thinking about his loneliness. The past is deep. Naturally, it's a beautiful line. It's loaded with numerous interpretations. Yes, and the boy says that it's a beautiful line. Yes, so. And that's what B. Wordsworth says. My entire experience of a whole month. Actually, it's not an experience of a whole month. I believe it's an experience of a lifetime in that single line of poetry. The past is deep. Yes. It sort of impresses the boy a lot. But you see, the little boy believes in Mr. Wordsworth, B. Wordsworth, so much, and he says, Mr. Wordsworth, if I drop this pin in the water, you think it'll float? Simple experiment of science that you do. What happens to the pin if you throw it in water? What would your reply be? What would you say? No, it's going to sink. How can a pin float on water? Yes. But what is the reply that a poet gives? It's a strange world. Unexpected things happen. Drop a pin and let's see what happens. Never give out an answer. Let the boy discover the answer by himself. Very important. Don't give. When does learning happen best? When you learn through your own experience, when you learn by doing. Yes. So, okay, the world is a strange place. I don't know. For all you know, if you throw the pin, it'll float. If I throw the pin, it'll sink. So throw the pin into the water. Let's see what happens. So the little boy throws the pin in the water and it sinks. Fine. That's reality. That is expected. So fine. This had to happen. Whatever will be will be. What has to happen will happen. Yes. So the pin sank. Yes. They move again. Uh, they move again back to some mundane realities. Yes. And then the boy asks, "What is it, the line that you've written this month?" But he never got an answer to that. Yes. Probably the reply that he got was, "Oh, it comes, it comes." So, like every artist, there is that inspirational moment, that eureka moment that comes, and then you write a line. The past is deep, the present deeper, and the future is unknown. I don't know. So, that inspirational moment has to come. But one thing is sure, that the greatest poem the little boy never heard of anymore. But the boy is very practical as well, unlike B. Wordsworth. Yes. So he said, how do you live? How do you survive? Yes. How do you get the money? Simple question. and what does B. Wordsworth say? I sing calypsos in the calypso season. Yes. Calypso, my music. Yes. Remember the banana boat song? Yes. And then you sing so many songs that you have so much of savings that it lasts the year. Yes. It's enough. So what is the naivety of the boy? What is his reply? But you'll be the richest man in the world when you write the greatest poem. Yes. The two things shown in this statement on page 123. Yes, the innocence that comes out, naivety. And second, he has so much of faith, belief in his friend, that yes, he will write the greatest poem. Yes. That, but his poet friend doesn't reply to that. That is the end of a section of this entire, you can say, episode, which is based on the growing friendship between B. Wordsworth and the boy in the story. Then it is a waning off. Yes, we have reached, this is the climax, and then it is the waning off, because the next time when he meets the B. Wordsworth, he's lying on his bed. He looks very old, he looks emaciated, he definitely looks very unwell. So unwell, the little boy is about to cry. Yes. He said, the poem is not going well. Means, I'm not doing well. I don't think there is any hope left for me. That is the meaning. He was not looking at me. The past is deep. He was in the past. He was looking through the window at the coconut tree, sorry. He said, when I was 20, I felt the power within myself. But that was a long time ago. There was hope, there was aspiration, there was a dream, there was something that I wanted to achieve when I was young. But that's all gone. That's all blown away by the realities of life. Blown away by the little story, which was the true reality, yes? And then I felt it so keenly. I could see it clearly on his face. It was there for everyone to see. And what did the little boy see? The little boy saw that he was going to lose his friend. The little boy saw death. And so he's asked the question, oh, you can see it too? See, I always knew you had a poet's eye, because it's only a poet who can understand the true essence of another being. And you have understood. You've understood that my days are gone. You understood that I will now be an object of the past. Yes. And because I always believed you were a poet, so you've understood it. Yes. And you see this entire, the response of the boy is something which is very natural. He just cries. He breaks into tears, bursts out crying loudly. Then he said, I'll tell you a funny story. I've told you one story and I want to tell you a very funny story. As if he's trying to boost his morale. Yes? Trying to bring some happiness, smile back into his life. He said, I'll tell you a story. You know, and then there's a statutory warning. He said, when I finish this story, I've reached the last page. I want you to promise that you will go away and never come back to see me. Do you promise that? Why do you think the poet says this? Again, write a little point by yourself. Why do you think the poet says this? Never come back to see me. Do you promise? The little boy nodded yes. He's always kept his promise. I'll keep my word. Well, and what is the funny story that he says? The boy poet and girl poet, do you remember that story? That wasn't true. It was something I just made up. All this talk about poetry, the greatest poem in the world, that wasn't true either. Isn't that the funniest thing you've heard? You know, there's our sweetest songs are those that tell us the saddest thoughts. Yes, a saddest thought. This is supposed to be a funny story, but it is actually telling us a saddest thought. And that is, finally, at the end of his life, the poet says, don't be a dreamer. Be realistic. Be realistic. Live in the present. The past may be deep, but deep is something that we cannot fathom. Yes. So don't believe in this story. There never was a poet. There never will be a greatest poem. But there's something that is very, which goes against the very essence of this, what he says. The next line, mark this line. But his voice broke. When does your voice break? When there is a lot of emotion. Here, he started saying that it's a funny story. His voice broke because it wasn't a funny story. It was the truth. It was probably the only truth. Yes, that my life has been that of a dreamer. And I've lost everything. So don't be a dreamer. Yes. What has happened is one of the saddest tales of my life. So don't make your life sad. Be realistic. Live up to what the world wants you to be, to have. I left the house and ran home crying like a poet for everything I saw. Because every thought that he felt, every word that he heard, touched his heart. And that's why a poet. Yes. I walked along Alberto Street a year later, but I could find no sign of the poet's house. It hadn't vanished, it had been pulled down. This is progress. A two-storied building had taken its place. The mango tree, the plum tree, and the coconut tree had all been cut down. There was big brick and concrete everywhere. This is a reality. So, don't be a dreamer. A dreamer is dead. His dream house is dead. The trees are gone. Nature is gone. Nature is dead. It was just as though B. Wordsworth had never existed. The wilderness around, the concrete houses, a testimony that a dream has died. A dream of a life based on emotions, a life based on beauty, a life based on uh, making one's dream come true, a little dream of becoming a poet. living a life of togetherness, that story which became very important. Do you think the boy is going to carry this story with him for the rest of his life? How do you think this story has affected the boy? Yes. There are different parts to this chapter. Yes. You have to remember that there is so much of biographical aspect of it that you believe that V.S. Naipaul, that's my belief, my understanding. You please reach your own understanding on this. I believe that it was V.S. Naipaul, who is a little boy, who perhaps one of these little, on his little walk, had met B. Wordsworth. He calls him B. Wordsworth. He had met a poet, yes, and he had shared, the poet had shared uh, the story of his life with him, and through this sharing, Naipaul creates this character of B. Wordsworth. Yes, he himself is a creative artist, so he goes on to create another uh, artist, an artist here, of course, who perhaps is lost forever, but somebody who has uh, etched a memory in the mind of a little boy whom he met for a few days, a few moments of shared happiness and a friendship that could be, be a part of, and definitely we know is a part of Naipaul's life, because he penned down this story from a memory of the past. The past is really deep. So we will move into one day of our just a discussion on the questions, and some important. I've already given you the important sections to be marked out, and we'll just have a short 15-minute class. I think the last lesson should be a long one. We'll just discuss a few questions and the approach to the answer, that I think is so important from the ISC point of view. And of course, there is something special that I I want to dedicate. It's a kind of a dedication to B. Wordsworth, which I'm still in the process of designing. So I hope it'll be ready by the time we come for the next lesson, which will be a short lesson. We'll just discuss the question, and if you have any queries, do put it in the comments page. I shall see you all very soon, because I like to finish it one after the other when it is fresh in your mind. Do read the story, do mark out the relevant portions, and I shall see you very soon. Till then, take care, stay safe, and good night.